fellow Trek Chatters, I'm Pit Trekkie, and welcome to another episode of Pittsburgh's Trek Chat. So in today's episode, what I'm going to be doing is reviewing the 6th episode of Star Trek Picard entitled The Impossible Box. The title of the episode seems to go along with some sort of toy that Narek has that he uses to kind of help himself concentrate, kind of like a Rubik's Cube. So we've had several things in this episode that happened, but really what happened is it kind of jumped the story forward a little bit. But it started with Soji starting to have a dream about her in some sort of lab. She was trying to find her father. She can't make head or tails of what's going on in the dream. We're starting to notice that she's starting to question a little bit more about who she is. At one point, she's actually going through old pictures and personal items of hers, and she's actually scanning them, and they're all coming out to being the exact same age, 37 months old, so she can't figure that out. She's also trying to figure out why every time she has a communication with her mother, she tends to fall asleep. And at one point, when she does contact her mom, she tries to keep herself awake by stabbing herself in the hand, but that still didn't work. Finally, she starts going through all these different pictures of her and Dodge and other family pictures, tearing them up. Narek this whole time is still trying to figure out how he's going to get the information that he needs out of Soji. Narissa's still taunting him about his techniques, trying to make freakish little babies with, the synth. So what he does is, while they're talking, he uses something called, let me see if I can pronounce this correctly, Atan Zekran, or Zekran, whatever. But it's some sort of little box. Kind of looks like a Romulan version of a Rubik's Cube that he says that kind of helps him to try to concentrate on what he's doing. To kind of, it's the key to opening certain things is the way that he describes it. Key to opening things. And that's what he's trying to do, is he's trying to unlock where Soji's homeworld is and where the other synths are hiding at this point. So we jump ahead. The La Sirena is finally on its way to the artifact. Of course, Dr. Jurati killed Bruce Maddox in the previous episode, and Picard's talking to her about it, and she's saying that maybe his heart just couldn't take whatever had happened to him. So you could tell she's guilty as sin just by how anxious she is during the whole thing. But Picard doesn't seem to pick up on it. Obviously, things come to a head with Rios and Jurati. They finally consummate their relationship. But besides that, the crew is on its way to the artifact, but they need special clearance to get to the artifact. So Rafi, who's still in this stupor and slump from her son back at in the previous episode and not having a relationship with him, she contacts a captain named Emmy, and manages to say to her, well, you know what, we're just a couple hours away, we better get the clearance now. And obviously this lady panics and gives Picard the 24 hours of diplomatic clearance on board the Cube. When they get there, he encounters Hugh. They have a really nice warm embrace, a nice encounter with each other, a reunion, if you want to say so. Picard tells Hugh that Soji is in severe danger. Hugh goes to try to take Picard to where she's at. At this point, Narek takes Soji into this room that's taboo for all non-Romulans. Let me see where I have the name here. I believe it's called the Zal Mach at that point. So what they do is they go into this room, and it's almost like there's a wooden floor, and there's like this path that she's supposed to be tracing, which kind of helps her to kind of explore that dream that she's been having. So she starts to get a little bit more details about what's going on. She sees herself in pieces on a lab table, but all made of wood, like Pinocchio. And then she looks up at the sky, and she sees in the window 2 red moons and a bunch of lightning. Well, that was enough for Narissa, who had been listening off-site, to figure out where their homeworld is. And the same thing with Narek. And so finally, Soji is still in that room. Narek leaves this little box, which reminds me of the Thalaron radiation medallion from Nemesis during the Senate scene. and releases this kind of red poisonous gas to kill her, but she activates. And what ends up happening is she starts punching through the floor. She falls through the floor and lands right in front of Picard and Hugh. They say that they're there to rescue her. They go into this room, which is, I guess, the Queen's lair, the Queen's chamber. And they use what the spatial trajector technology that was seen in the first season episode of Voyager with the Sakarans. I can't remember the exact name of the episode. Was it Prime Factor or something like that? But anyway, they were able to, the Queen had gotten that technology through assimilation. Picard decides they're going to go to the planet Nepenthe. So Soji and Picard jump through. In the process, Hugh tries to stay back, and Elnor, who was supposed to stay on board the ship, comes and saves everybody, but he gets captured as well. So that's pretty much how the episode ended. So here's some of the things that I liked about the episode. I knew that this was going to happen. Rios and Jurati were going to hook up. It was just obvious they were just setting it up that it was going to happen. So it was probably a quick one-night stand. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and there you go. All right. I also liked the new version of Picard's speech from First Contact when he was talking to some of the La Sirena crew. And he was talking about how they, quote, coolly assimilate entire worlds. They don't change. They metastasize. All right, so it's kind of like a riff off of the speech that he was giving Lily about in First Contact about the Borg, that they constantly fall back. They assimilate entire worlds. They fall back. The line must be drawn here, this far, no farther. So it's just a nice little twist on the whole thing. One other thing that I really liked in the episode was Rios's kindness with Raffi. Obviously, they have some sort of past relationship. I don't think it was anything romantic, but there's definitely some sort of respect there between the two of them. Watching her fall apart like that and seeing him tucking her in, giving her coffee to try to make herself feel better, try to give her a chance to talk about whatever's bothering her. I mean, you see a different side to Rios than what we've seen before. We usually see the Han Solo swashbuckler, smart-ass who smokes cigars. You know, you get to see a kind of kind side to him here. So it shows that there's more to Rios than the meets the eye. And we already know that anyway to a degree because we know he was in Starfleet in the past. He seemed to be a pretty good officer back in the day, so I'm sure there's more we're going to learn about that. I also thought that there was a really good example of showing PTSD in a real-life situation in this episode. In a previous episode, my buddy Robert and I talked about PTSD in Star Trek, but it was really shown this time when Picard was going through the files at the early part of the episode, and he found out Hugh was on the artifact, and he was going through some of the old pictures from the Enterprise D, and all of a sudden he comes across Locutus's face, and the camera merges the Locutus image with Picard's image now, and he touches his face back to where the implants were at. That was really creepy. Could you imagine there are so many different things that can cause flashbacks in people with PTSD. It could be a sound, it could be a smell, it could be a touch. But could you imagine actually seeing your face superimposed with your worst nightmare in front of you? I mean, I'm surprised Picard didn't just collapse at that point. You know, but he stayed strong because he's got something that he's trying to live for right now. A mission, a purpose at this point. All right. Like I also said, the Sakarian tie-in from Voyager, that was a nice little Easter egg that they threw in there. It's kind of something that you would never thought you would have heard from again. But it was a really neat tie-in. What it also reminded me of, they could have easily not done anything with the Sakarans, and they could have done something with the Iconian gateways, really, because that reminded me more of a gateway from Iconia rather than something from that episode of Voyager. The Queen's Chamber was pretty cool as well. We never knew that there was a Queen's Chamber on board the Cube, and that it's hidden. I mean, it makes perfect logical sense to the story, but I just thought that was very interesting. I also really liked the interaction with Picard and Hugh. You could definitely tell that even though it had been years since they had seen each other, there was definitely a mutual affection for each other. And especially not just because they knew each other from that one mission aboard the Enterprise D, but just the fact that they had both been assimilated. They had both been essentially raped by the collective, essentially. So they have that in common as something that they can share. It was sad. It was hard to watch Picard walking through the cube, nervous, scared. That was the first time he had been on a cube, and since he had been assimilated. So that had been, 30 years almost. by his point. Okay, so being around that definitely would be upsetting. I mean, to be around all that familiar stuff. But I really enjoyed the interaction between the two. I also enjoyed the part where Hugh was talking to Picard about the XBs, kind of using that name to kind of reclaim themselves, to realize that they're not Borg anymore. They still are the people who they really were. And to actually see them starting to become a little bit more of the people that they used to be with the cosmetic surgery, that was touching to see, because these people have suffered so much. So to see them having a little glimpse of hope and some sort of belief that some of their realities coming back to them is very touching. Some things I didn't like about the episode. I'm still not liking the way the Federation is being portrayed overall in this episode. I mean, watching the whole point with Raffi and Emmy, that whole scene, and all these little dirty doings behind the scenes with Starfleet, and you have to go around channels to get this, whatever it was, the diplomatic 24 hours to be able to go on board the cube. That's just not the way Starfleet has seemed to me over the years. I don't understand why the writers are so insistent on making the Federation come off as some sort of bad guy in this series. I mean, they're barely involved in the series at all, and when they are, they're usually duplicitous in some way. I just don't think that's the way that the Federation and Starfleet should be portrayed. I know they're doing it in this series, I just don't like it. I don't. When are we going to start getting a little bit more stability with Raffi at this point? I understand a lot of people are enjoying seeing some of this because they're seeing themselves in a mother who had drug and alcohol issues and had left her family and went into this deep depression. So that's resonating with a lot of people. But it's getting harder and harder and harder to watch her walking around the ship in her pajamas, self-medicating with drugs and alcohol, and then just, laying around and being drunk. I'm just tired of seeing it. I want to learn more about who Raffi really is. I'm tired of seeing the drinking and the sadness. I want to start learning a little bit more about her. I want her to start getting a sense of purpose again. And I'm hoping that will continue on as the episodes go. So basically, the questions for this episode: where will the two red moons be? Interested to see. My first thought when I saw the episode and saw the lightning with all the stellar dust clouds or nebula or whatever, reminded me of the Badlands from Deep Space Nine and Voyager. That would be actually kind of cool if they tied it into the Badlands somehow. I can't see them doing that, especially with them being in the Beta Quadrant out in Romulan space. But I don't know, I just thought that would be a neat little Easter egg to think that maybe somehow they're going to be going to the Badlands somehow. But, it's just wishful fan thinking at this point. Also, really, the only other question, how far is Nepenthe from the artifact? We know that Picard said to the rest of the crew before he and Soji stepped through the spatial trajector to meet us at that planet. So it can't be too far away. It can't be like something that's like 6-8 weeks away. I just don't see that happening. So it'd probably just be a matter of days or so that it takes for them to get there. But we'll find out in the upcoming episodes. So really, that's my review for The Impossible Box. Like I said, it was a pretty interesting episode. We finally moved the story along a little bit. We finally got Soji to be activated. She's starting to learn a little bit more about who she is. Narek has finally been revealed. Hugh and Eleanor have been caught, taken prisoner by the Tal Shiar, and we're going to a new planet in the next episode. So a lot of interesting things coming up. Please feel free to comment below. Please watch the episode, comment down below here on YouTube. I'd love to hear what you have to say about the episode. You can follow the show, obviously just type in Pittsburgh's Trek Chat in the search engine on YouTube and it'll take you right to my channel. You can follow the show www.facebook.com/Pittsburgh's Trek Chat. You can also follow the show on Twitter at PGH Trek Chat. I'm looking forward to the next episode, which will actually be my 50th episode of Pittsburgh's Trek Chat, so I got a little something special planned. So until then, may yins live long and prosper.